Good day and welcome to Business Orientation. This section is going to be broken down into several videos, bite-sized chunks instead of just one long video. But to start out, before we get into the metrics and the numbers of our business and how do we make income and what are overrides and all these different things I'm sure you have questions about. One of the very first things I wanted to share with you is a story of one of our field leaders, in fact, one of the top field leaders that the company has ever produced. And it's a gentleman by the name of Swan Nguyen. And Swan, just to give you an idea, has been in the company now in the industry for close to 40 years. And he has done amazing things in the company month after month, year after year. Just to give you an idea how big of a deal he is in the firm, last month, as of the time of this video, his organization did over 30 million points of production. By comparison, the number two person, second place, did just over 12 million. And in fact, number three did right around 11 or 12 as well. So his team production was more than the number two and number three person combined. And it's been that way for many, many years. And about 50-ish% of our company falls under his organization. And so he's a very, very big deal. And over the years, he's written several books, The Moment of Truth, Facing the Challenges, The System Builder. He's written several other books around financial orientation, different things. But in one of his books, The System Builder, and there's several versions of it, but in his book, The System Builder, in one of the early pages, he has this quote. He said, "What would you do if you knew exactly how to win? What would you do if you knew exactly how to win?" So all the things that I just told you about Swan, as impressive as they are nothing compared to his story as he got started. See, he's doing what he's doing now. And last year, as the time of this recording, he had made over $20 million in personal income. And he's made over $10 million a year in personal income for many, many years going back. Now, again, that's not to impress you. What's more impressive is that he got started just like you and I did. He was just a brand new training associate, starting part-time, wondering if this was going to be a thing for him, the thing for him, wondering if he could make it here, wondering if he'd made a mistake. And so he got started just like you and I, and with a brand new license. He actually was an immigrant and came over here. English is either a second or third language. But there's a couple of things about his story that I think will impress upon you just how important it is not to get discouraged early on. And so here's his story as he got started to where he is now, the numbers I just gave you. So Swan went to, back before the pandemic, back before the Zoom era, we would meet in offices a couple of days a week. We would hold BPMs, business presentation meetings, live. And so he went down, and they would typically would be on Tuesday evenings and Saturday mornings. And some offices did a little different. But the point is, a couple of days a week, we would meet, and then we would schedule follow-ups from there. So he got invited by somebody, a friend of his, on a Friday, and he went to the meeting on Saturday morning. So he walked in open-minded, ready to go, ready to learn. He walked away from that meeting super fired up, excited about the potential of what this business could do for him and his family, just like all of us did. We walked away from what we heard. We got excited about it. We went home, and then life happened. And so when he went home, again, this is Saturday afternoon, and he had set his follow-up for Monday afternoon. So 48 hours later, the timing is important, but he had set his follow-up 48 hours after he had met for the first time with somebody to learn about what it is we do. And so he was sitting there all excited, driving home, and he's like, this is it. This is an answer to a prayer. This is what I've been looking for all my life. And he gets home and he walks in the house, and his wife says, "Hey, hon, how was that meeting?" And he says, "It was great. We're going to be rich. I found the dream of dreams. I found the answer to everything." And without even turning around, she says, "What, again?" Because he had already tried some things in the past. He had already started some businesses that didn't work out. And so imagine walking out of this meeting fired up, excited about the possibility, excited about the future, excited about taking care of his family in a way that he hadn't up till that point. And the very first person, the one you care about the most, is already shooting arrows at you, is already, taking some of the helium out of your balloon. And so a little bit of gun shy. So the next day there was a barbecue at a family relative's house. And so he goes there and he said, "Oh, how's your weekend? What's been going on?" And he says, "Well, I went to this financial service meeting yesterday. I'm really excited about it. I've got my follow-up tomorrow, Monday, and I think I'm really going to give it a shot. I'm super excited about it." And I think it was his cousin, who's a CPA at the time, goes, "Financial services? You?" It's like, I'm a CPA, and I'm real smart. You're a social worker, and it's hard for me. I don't know if it's going to be a good fit for you. I don't think it's a good idea. You might want to think about canceling. And so he goes through, and now after the first two people he talked to, both of them shooting it down, he's a little gun shy. He's almost decided he's not going to show up. So he goes into work Monday morning, and he was going to go to the follow-up at lunch on Monday. So he goes in, talks to the person that sits next to him in his cube mate. It's like, "Hey, how was your weekend? What happened?" He's like, "Oh, well, we had a barbecue yesterday, and on Saturday I went to a business meeting, and I'm pretty excited about it. I've got a follow-up today. I think I'm gonna go. I think I'm gonna go forward with it." He looks at him, kind of puzzled but laughing, like, you're a social worker. Who's going to listen to you about money and finance?" And then he turns around, goes back to work, and Swan at that moment had quit. He had decided, you know what? You're right. Who am I? What was I thinking? These people know what they're talking about. I'm not going to go. Well, luckily, the person that had invited him to the meeting on Saturday called him up Monday morning after she knew he was at work and just says, "Hey, just following up. Looking forward to seeing you today. Just wanted to make sure you had the address and the directions and knew your time. You're on the calendar." And he said, and now he had just been there 2 days previous. He had just been there 48 hours ago. She wasn't calling really to see if he needed directions or the address. He had already been there. She was really calling to find out. And again, there's so much psychology in what we do and why we do it and how we do it. She was really calling just to see how badly he'd been beaten up over the weekend or what kind of information he'd come across over the weekend. And so he says, "I'm not coming." And she said, "The only thing you have to say in that scenario," which was, "What happened?" And he says, "I don't want to talk about it." "No, really, what happened?" And so he goes, "Well, I left and I was excited, and my wife this, my cousin that, my coworker the other. And I don't think it's for me. I'm quitting. I don't even want to show up." And so she says to him, "Hey, that's fine. If you don't want to do this, that's wonderful. If you feel like this is not a fit for you, that's great. But here's the deal. You made a commitment to my trainer. He's incredibly busy. He could have filled that time slot with somebody else, but he didn't. He blocked it off for you. Don't make me look bad by not showing up. So if you get there and it's not for you, tell him no, that's fine, but don't make me look bad by not showing up." And so he says, "Fine, I'll go." And so he ends up showing up to the office, holding true to his commitment, and he ends up, crawling across the floor, with the arrows of life in his back. And, trainer reaches out to him. His name's Rich, the trainer, which, by the way, short little side note. So Rich isn't just a trainer. He's also one of the co-founders of the company. There's another story coming later in this training series about him. But so Rich, kind of props him up in the chair, joking, right? Arrows of life. But so he sits there and they're talking and having a good conversation. He said, "I understand you had a rough weekend." And he said, "Yeah, my wife this, my cousin that, my coworker the other, and I don't think it's for me." And so Rich looks at him and says, "Okay, that's wonderful. That's great." He said, "Let me ask you a couple of questions." He said, "Number one, do those people care for you?" And he said, "Yeah, I think so." And he says, "Good." He said, "Now, do you think those people love you? Your wife, your cousin, do you think they love you and care about you, want what's best for you?" He said, "Well, yeah, I hope so." And he said, "Good. I think so too. Let me ask you this. Which one of them is currently financially independent?" Swan thinks about it and he said, "Well, none of them." "Okay. which one of them is currently running a successful financial services practice? As well, none of them. He says, okay. So the way I see it, you've got two options here. You can either listen to other people tell you why you can't do something that they themselves are not doing. Or number two, if you had someone or an organization that would be willing to coach you, to mentor you, take you under their wing, teach you what they know, who's having the success that you want currently, if you could have them teach you, coach you, mentor you, would you let them? Those are your two options. And he thinks about it for a minute. He says, well, when you put it like that, I'm in. And so he got started and he had a little bit of a slow start. It took him a couple of years because, again, he's very shy, very introverted. He's a social worker. Finance was not his primary thing. English was, again, his second or third language. So this was a new industry, a new thing for him. But again, going back to what I had said before, as of the time of this recording, last year alone, this company paid him and his family $20 million plus of personal income. And again, $10 million a year plus for many, many years going back. And so my question is not about the money, but let me think about this. Do you think his wife is okay with the fact that he decided to move forward, even though she was discouraging at the time? Right? She's probably super fired up. She's probably kicking herself for even trying to discourage him in the beginning. The other thing is, imagine what would his life look like, not just him and his family. What would his life and family look like if he had just stayed as a social worker? And there's nothing wrong with social workers. You want to be a social worker, you want to work at Publix or Kroger, or you want to work in the service industry, you want to be a waiter or waitress, manager of a restaurant, you want to be a mechanic. There's nothing wrong with any of these services or these fields, right? Or be a teacher. Nothing wrong. These are beautiful professions, and we need people in those professions. But my question still stands is, what would his family's life look like if he had stayed on the path of being a social worker for the last 30 years, almost 40 years, as opposed to taking a chance and getting started with us part-time? What would his family have missed out on? I don't mean money. I mean experiences, lifestyle. What sort of things have they enjoyed they wouldn't have enjoyed? They wouldn't have met certain people because they wouldn't have lived in certain places. I mean, all the different things, the trajectory of their life changed drastically for the better generationally. Their kids and grandkids and great-grandkids will never have to worry about a financial burden for many, many, many generations because of the decision he made to join and not quit, to start a career here and keep moving forward. Okay. Now, does that mean that that's a guaranteed scenario for a new person or someone like you coming on board? No, absolutely not. But it is a possibility. It is what is available. Oh, by the way, what about all the clients that he's helped? Where would they be financially had he not come around and stuck around? And not just him, what about the generations and the family, all the SMDs, the brokers, the other agents that he's helped change their lives forever? And so had he not decided to come on board, stick around, figure it out, and keep going, right? If you're, whatever you don't have yet, if you just stick around, you'll figure it out, right? If there's a script you need to learn, you'll stick around, you'll learn it. If there's a product you need to learn how to run or an illustration, stick around, you'll learn it. If you're too young, well, stick around, you'll get older. Anything that we need to learn or to do, as long as you don't quit, there's still opportunity, there's still possibility to win here. And so I tell you all that just to say that at some point, probably earlier than later, somebody is going to try and steal your joy. Somebody is going to try and lick the red off your candy. Somebody, and especially the closer they are, the harder that it hurts. So if it's a spouse, if it's a parent, if it's an aunt or an uncle, someone you look up to, somebody is going to try and do that. And not because they don't like you or don't love you. It's just they haven't seen what you've seen. They don't know what you know. Let them see what you've seen and get excited like you are, right? And then one of the next videos here, we'll talk about how we do that. So I just wanted to share that with you, that as you kick off your journey here, what would you do if you knew exactly how to win? And you will love the future you. The future you will look back and thank you now today for making the decision to join and don't quit.